It's time for the Creator Town Hall here on Studio Live today. I hope you're well. This show is brought to you by the wonderful folks over at BandLab. BandLab is a free, interactive, online digital audio workstation recording platform, collaboration tool. It is the bomb diggity. We'll talk a little more about BandLab later on in the show, but we're going to dive straight into this because I've got a very cool guest. It's someone who I've known for a few months now. I've guested with him over on Mike Enjo's Creative Source Fix My Mix show. It is Lonely Rocker. I'm going to read what he's got on his YouTube About section because I think this sums it up, and we'll talk to Dan and find out if this is still where he's at and what he's doing now. So he says, the Lonely Rocker is slightly autobiographical as it represents my ability to cover off on all the disciplines it takes to deliver my videos from script to camera, editing, graphics, and sound mix. It's all behind the controls. Plus, I play all the instruments, produce, record, and mix all the music that is featured in the background and the foreground of my videos. Does that sound pretty cool? Do you want to meet someone who does all of that? Well, I think we should bring him on. This is the one, the only Dan, the Lonely Rocker. How you doing today, Dan?
No wonder I'm so tired.
You do everything. You do everything. And look, it's cool because we were chatting in the pre-show. I'm like, my mantra here is create, record, release, and yours is, you're a lonely rocker and you do everything yourself. And I know many folks here in the community have that same kind of mantra where they're all doing stuff themselves. So what I usually do right up front here is, because I know some people will know you really well, some people maybe have seen you around, some people don't have a clue who you are or what you do. So despite the introduction I've already given you, tell folks in 30 seconds, what is the Lonely Rocker ethos and story?
Well, the Lonely Rocker, as you just read, is autobiographical. I come from sort of my professional life. I found my way into this thing where I work from home. I do have a broadcast television background where I produce commercials.
Cool.
And I've done music videos and the whole thing. And then one day I put an editing computer in my house and started editing my own stuff, and then it was a camera, and then it sort of went from there. So when it came time to experiment on YouTube, which I wish I did 10 years ago or before, it was just something natural to do. And a lot of the work that I did was as sort of a self-sufficient producer where I covered off a lot of the different roles. I've been playing music for years. I'm primarily a guitar player, but through necessity learned how to play bass, and once I was recording on a computer, learned how to put all the other bits and bobs in. So it's sort of like I just realized I like to learn. That's really all it is. It's not like I'm multi-talented. I'm just multi-curious. I like to learn how to do different things, and that's pretty much it. And it's just become, I guess, a big part of my passion is I like to see how far I can take something on my own. It is exhausting and time consuming, but when you achieve something pretty cool, it feels good. So that's what it's about.
Yeah. Totally. And I know many folks are nodding along there because there's many of us that have followed similar paths. And I love that you say by necessity you learn this stuff, because I think many people in this community and that talk to me on a regular basis about their creation, because you think, this show is all about music creation, but music and then video and then promotion, like we were talking beforehand, that we've both got kind of marketing backgrounds. It is, you do have to be everything, don't you? You have to be your own one person machine. It doesn't mean you can't get help, because there's help out there, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But yeah, obviously that's been daunting for you. What was the biggest challenge that you found in that over the last sort of few years since you really got into this whole YouTube thing that you found?
Well, I mean, I started it just for fun. I was busy in my, broadcast television, commercial production stuff. And I just started because I built a home studio progressively. I mean, I had the room, and then I bought a couple pieces of gear, and I found myself watching a lot of videos on how to make acoustic panels and how to do different things. And then one day I was like, I think I can do this better. And I actually did an acoustic panel, how to make your own DIY acoustic panels. And at first it was just contagious. It was just a fun thing to do. And that video has been pretty successful it's still the most successful video on my channel. So my biggest challenge has been replicating that success, because everything else has been slow growth. Yeah. Growth being key, but slow. So, I mean, now ever since COVID, the lockdown, I'm going to stop using air quotes. That was the last sip right there. During the lockdowns, I started spending more time with my channel, and I got a chance to meet a lot of more people. And now we're sort of kind of quasi in and out of this, whatever we want to call it now. So I've sort of committed more to it. So the challenge is now is, continuing to push and recognizing, I need to make income and provide for my family and stuff like that. So it's the biggest challenge is balance now, right? Because I'm committed to doing this, but at the same time, it sometimes doesn't jive with a regular lifestyle, especially when you have a family. So
Yeah, and we'll talk about that as well because juggling, being a creator and juggling the work life or the music life balance is always interesting. Having all those balls in the air as well. But yeah, I know that again, many people are nodding along with you, agreeing with that. And you notice that I was much nicer than Mike is when he introduces you because he's like, "Welcome, the acoustic panel guy," and it's Dan, Lonely Rocker. So there is more to Dan than just acoustic treatment. But we will touch on that because you know what? It's one area that I don't do well. And as you can see, you know, my studio here has zero acoustic treatment apart from the fact that I have, you know, I'm in my bedroom studio, so I have some soft furnishings. So I guess I get a small tick there, but I'm about a 1 out of 10 when it comes to acoustic treatment. So we'll talk about that, and maybe Dan can lecture me on what I need to do. Hello to the folks. Let's do a bit of housekeeping here. We'll say good day to the folks who are here live in just a moment. If you have any questions, we're interactive here. We're live here on YouTube and Facebook and all the places. So do just put the word question or a big Q in front of your comment if you've got a question for Dan, because you've got a chance to tap into a whole new brain for the next 54 minutes that's not mine, that's going to have a whole lot of different information, which is always good. Let's say good day to the folks who are here live. Good day to Rook, Avalanida. Good day to, now is it Psycho 7 or Sicko 7? Either way, I like it. It's cool. Good day to Dan Ekberg, to Danny Gable is here. Thomas Christ, looks like a pretty nice studio. Yes, Dan has the RGBs. Dan and Mike, whenever we're on a show together, I'm just like, I'm always jealous because I always have the plain background. I've never gone the RGB route, but I do like the eye candy they've got there. G'day to Mark Bro. Hello to Doug Kidder, someone that I know that you're familiar with as well, and some bloke called Creative Source, munching on Vegemite toast. So if you are here and you want to say g'day, please just drop a comment in the chat and say hello. Keonra's here, I did see before. Hello, Keonra. Keonra's got a very nice studio, and in fact, this is why I like these shows, because we just segue based on Hello Joe and Barry Glenn. We segue based on just the serendipity of whatever comes up in the chat. I saw a post from Keonra, who's a music creator, who's part of Mike's community, and it's sort of like a lot of us, we all sort of share and jump around to different communities. And I know Mike's been helping her out with her studio, and you've been helping her out. There was an acoustic treatment that you helped her out with.
Well, she's saw those videos, and she's been active in my little group as well, and. Yeah, I saw that picture. I was the first one to comment. Blew me away. I mean, she's been talking about it. Listen, I will say, as you know, in this space of ours, we get comments and we chat with a lot of people. Say, I'm going to do this. I'm building a studio, and you're like, yeah, whatever. She did it, and it looks awesome. So congrats to Keonra.
I agree with that, because as soon as she said, "Oh yeah, I'm putting a studio together," I'm just like, "Oh yeah, you know, I've done that. Many people have done that. Put a little studio together, and then I look at the finished product, and it's like it's immense." So no pressure, Keonra, but you are now, you're down for creating some amazing tunes in there, because you've definitely got no excuses with the studio build that you've got there. Very cool stuff. We've got the home recording studio zone. Hello to Ricky T. Over there, and I was chatting because you've just had, again, we're talking about music and work and life and balance and things. You were just telling me a little bit about your vacation. You've had a little bit of a break. Did you want to share with the community, since it's a community show here, a little bit about
so my wife and I, we've got our kids are in sleepaway camp. First time we had a little break from our kids, so we took a drive. It's called the West Coast of Ontario. If anyone knows Canada, Ontario doesn't have a West Coast, but the southern part of Ontario is surrounded by lakes. And there's a lake to the west, Lake Huron, that we've never seen. They got beaches there, and it was amazing. My wife kept saying, like, this doesn't feel like we're in Canada. Like, it's strange. Blue water, and then there's like cottage country. We took the convertible. We drove around the countryside and stuff. We had a lot of fun. So it was nice to get away just for 4 days. But now we're back to the grind. And thanks for asking, Doug.
Yeah, well, and it's good because, again, when you are doing everything yourself, it is really important to take those breaks and to not be pushing yourself too hard, because burnout can be a bit of an issue. How have you avoided not overdoing it and burning out? Obviously, doing everything yourself and starting out.
I do those things.
Managed the times when you've been burning out?
I call my mom and I complain. That's how I get through.
There you go. Well, and look, it is. I must admit that I chat with you and I chat with Mike and a whole bunch of folks. Having a community around what you do, and I did want to talk about that. I know we're jumping around a heck of a lot here. We will get back to onto track, but it's always fun to do that.
Mhm.
But because you are a lonely rocker, is lonely always best? Because when I think of lonely rocker, and I think of some folks that fall into the trap of thinking I got to do everything myself, and almost a stubbornness around not receiving help. How do you balance out the fact that you're pushing the fact that you can do everything yourself, whereas sometimes you need some help? How do people balance, and how do you recommend folks balance that out?
Well, I have to be realistic. I mean, my channel is growing, but I'm not quite at the size that I can afford help. So I got to balance afford because time
Yeah,
is, what's the cost of time? Um, because I do need help. In fact, I'm working on a project right now that's been a year in the making, and the reason that I haven't finished it, it's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, and I finally committed to doing it, and I shut down my channel for a week because I don't have a video this week, but I said I'll never get to this video if I keep having to do a video, and so you have to make sacrifices sometimes. I mean,
yeah,
I want to put out quality content. I don't want to just, if I find I'm spinning my wheels, it's happened to me recently a couple of times where I was just kind of burnt out and I wasn't happy with the direction something was going. So I shut it down. I haven't missed many weeks since in the
mm,
last 2 years. But if I get to a point where I feel like this is just not happening, I just accept it for what it is. And I just say, let's shut it down, because I put a lot of work into my videos. I release about one a week, and
yeah.
I could spend an easily like 3 days on it, and plus probably some cerebral time for a couple of extra days on top of that. So it's a lot of effort to put in, and if it's not happening, then I just have to accept it for what it is.
Absolutely. And look, if you haven't, I didn't mention this, we're only 11 minutes in, but of course, you should go over and subscribe to Lonely Rocker, because you don't need a band to rock and roll. And that is totally true. We do, I like to say we live in the future, because there are so many ways that you can do everything yourself. And again, it's not, you don't have to be lonely. I do like the whole lonely concept. Like, I love it. We were talking before that you've got lonelyrocker.com as well, which I thought was pretty cool. And I believe you were saying that you pivoted the name of your channel to kind of match the cool URL that you could have gotten there.
Well, it was when I started my YouTube channel, it was called I Don't Have a Band. And if anyone's been following my channel, when I was pretty early on, because I wanted to get I don't have a band.com and it wasn't available. But the tagline for my channel was tools for the lonely rocker. I had just thrown that in. I
Yeah.
never even thought of the concept of lonely rocker. And one day I was like, well, I can't get the domain I don't have a band.com. And I just happened to try lonelyrocker.com and it was available. So I grabbed it right
Right.
away and I was like, oh my God, can I change names of my channel? Or people got. So what I did was I just in the spur of the moment, I changed my branding to Lonely Rocker. That little logo was literally just a doodle that I did, and I ended up keeping it. And
Mm.
then a stick man with a flying V arms and headphones on, right? But
Love it.
then what I did is that the main series, like the main video series on my channel, I called it I Don't Have a Band. So that was the name of the series.
Yeah, right.
But I've since done away with all of that. Now, if you go to my channel, every new video, it's just Lonely Rocker episode number. Like I've streamlined all of that now.
Yeah, right.
But because I think sometimes we overthink these things, and I know that I did. So I really just wanted to simplify the messaging of Lonely Rockers. No, I'm not lonely, but I'm not afraid to try things on my own. And that's the spirit of the times that we're in, right? So that's the message that I'm trying to put out. And now I've sort of simplified that messaging and trying to put it all on one lane, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, look, and I love that. I love the concept of not overthinking it and just getting on and doing it, because I think as creative types, and again, I know people are going to all put their hands in the air, but hands up anyone who overthinks their music and overthinks their production, overthinks their direction. Like, yeah, two hands in the air, because it's such an easy thing to do, and with so much ability. We live in the future, which means you can create all this stuff and you can share it with people, but it also means that you can get a lot of feedback, and some of it's warranted and some of it's justified, and some of it you have to have a pretty thick skin to manage there as well. So
We're
it's good times.
overthinking. It's the reason why I wear baseball hats in my videos.
Ah, there you go. I
It
like
came
it. See, I'm
from
not even.
overthinking.
I forgot the hat today, by the way. I just realized. I just
I
looked
do
at
have
my.
some hair under here, not as
I
much as
just
I
looked
used
at the
to.
shininess coming off my head there, and I'm just like, I normally wear a cap on this show too. Now people have found the horrible secret that
But
that
I
I
have a
don't have
reason
any
why
hair.
I wear a cap in my videos.
Oh, that sounds mysterious. Do we ask?
Sure, you can ask me. I've told this story before, but it was a video that I did. It was the first time I got a major retailer to quasi sponsor a video, and it was a big audio interface review. I had like 10 audio interfaces. I put a ton of work into it. And then I went to edit the video, and I was looking at myself, and I had this little clump of hair it looked like someone took an X-Acto knife and cut open a little section on my forehead, and it looked so stupid to me. It was like the biggest thing. I literally went in and rotoscoped it to clean it out. And it was after that I was like, and I'm not so vain, it's not about my hair, but I said, you know what, as you know, when we are lighting ourselves, shooting ourselves, doing our own audio, how many times have you just didn't hit the record? I don't know how you record sound on your flow, but I've had like camera audio instead of like my mic audio. There's so many things that screw up in the background. The last thing I wanted to think about was my hair. So it was at that moment, and I've never been a hat guy, never.
Yeah, okay.
I said, from now on, I'm just gonna put on a ball cap, and I'm not even gonna worry about my hair because I don't care. It's not about my hair, right? So there you go.
That is good. I actually really like that, because again, it's not about vanity, and I completely get that and agree, because it really is just about you being comfortable with you. And if you can't look at something or listen to something and be comfortable with it, then no one else is going to be. Like it's all about yourself at that point. So I like it. There you go. That's interesting. So we didn't think we'd talk about hat wearing on today's and the importance of hats. But yes, if you are having fun here, by the way, yeah, do hit the like button. Check out the link in the description. Make sure you're following Dan. Ricky T. Brown. I don't think Ricky T. Brown I've never seen Ricky T. Brown without a hair, and I've only seen him once without sunglasses. So it's your thinking cap. Yeah, absolutely.
Good to have my boys here, Ricky T, Mike.
Yeah,
I know Mike's probably preparing for his live stream right now.
Well, yeah, that's right. We'll make sure we cross to Mike straight after this one. Hello to Anva B, by the way, Barry Glenn. We've got some other folks who have dropped on by. I found Keonra's studio. It's on Instagram, which is public, so I'm assuming I'm cool to share this. But check out that studio. Hello, look at that. Look at the
burning a hole in my
case.
Screen. Look at that.
Ooh, yeah. That's some sexy looking studio action right there. Just quietly, get a bit excited by it. But I don't have one, but it's not what I'm into. But I love looking at them. It's kind of like window shopping for cars. Like I drive a Mitsubishi, but when I walk past that Porsche dealership, you better believe I'm looking in the window. Let's move on. We'll talk about we'll hear from our sponsor BandLab, by the way, because this is all brought to you by the wonderful BandLab. But for folks, you talked before, and we like to, it's only taken us 17 minutes to get to this. We normally do this earlier on. But what's your music origin story? You talked about being a guitarist, and then obviously getting into more of the production side. What was the start for music for you? How did you start getting into and loving playing and recording music?
Well, my earliest memory of playing guitar, we had an old classical guitar in the house that belonged to my dad, and as parents do, they pick an instrument and put your kid in piano lessons or whatever. My parents put me in classical guitar lessons, and the problem was that I didn't practice, these little single note scales, only one-handed, I was really like single hand exercises, and they were forcing me to play, trying to force me to practice at least 15 minutes a day, and I wasn't doing. Eventually they just kind of canceled the lessons. But I started to get the rock and roll bug. My earliest, I think the first album that was a contemporary rock album that I ever had, I don't know how I got it because I didn't buy it, was Supertramp's Breakfast in America, which is quite a first album to have. We had some other LPs, but that was sort of like, whoa, and it's something I still listen to today. And then I discovered, it was in grade 5, I discovered Rush. And see, some people know me as the panels guy, but people know me in real life. No, I'm the Rush guy. Okay?
The Rush guy. Oh, there's always one in every group, isn't there? That's just like, oh no,
And I picked up that guitar again. I was jamming with a tennis racket. I just like, wow, those sounds just blew me away, and I had to have a guitar. So one thing led to another, and I worked for my dad that summer, and I bought my first guitar, which was actually a really inexpensive Gibson guitar, and I still have it. There's another story. I almost lost it. We'll save that for another bit. But, but yeah, so it just, but then, just really getting into music and joining bands in high school, and, just playing, and, just that went further and further, where my band eventually got to do an album at a top shelf studio. Unfortunately, we never got to the point of being a touring act or anything like that. We kept losing members. It's the same old story. That's why I became a Lonely Rocker, because I just got tired of dealing with but yeah, so that just kind of grew from there. And a lot of my friends or people that I was jamming with or in my bands at that time they moved on to other careers and stuff like that. And in a way, so did I. I went to college for film and television, but I maintained my love for music. And while I was in college, recorded an album. Even when that band fell apart and got into my professional life, I got into music video production. So I was around music all the time. And I just kept recording music at home. I started recording on my computer. I used to have 4-track, the cassette recorders.
Oh, yeah.
Hours and hours of tapes. I was always recording. And then one day I had this riff that I wrote at home into my computer. I was like, I want to take this to the next level. Like, I actually want to see if I can produce this song. Not knowing what that meant. I thought I knew what it meant because I thought I knew everything. So I bought an audio interface. I bought those Yamaha HS7 speakers. And I started recording this song, and I was trying to mix it, and I realized I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And that was around the time I started my YouTube channel, and I've been learning how to mix in parallel with the channel, and I've learned so much. And I have some friends, one specific friend who was just interested in hearing my progress, kept asking me to send him mixes. He'd give me feedback. And then a few years later, he's like, man, the difference, I just learned so much along the way. I still feel like I have a long way to go, but I think that's what makes this so exciting, is because not only I'm teaching, I'm sharing experiences, and I'm learning at the same time. And I'm very interactive with people who take an interest in my channel, because I'm trying to learn too, right? So it's like, if I learn something, it's like I go to the people that do watch, hey, check this out. I just learned this. Here, let me show it to you, kind of thing. And I've done videos because someone sort of pointed to something in the comments that I thought, hey, that's fantastic. I'm going to do a video about that. So it's just sort of a shared learning thing. So that's kind of the story.
Which is cool. And it's interesting that, I can ask you that question about, is it okay? Should you always be lonely, and the whole lonely rocker thing? But it's pretty clear that once you delve just a layer below, a lot of the stuff you're doing is around the interaction with people and with interaction with the community and getting ideas. And I know a lot of your videos, you're answering questions from subscribers and from folks who are leaving comments on your videos. So there's a heap of interaction. And I think, even though we are in our own studios and you can do everything independently, you can definitely learn a lot from other people, and from watching and from learning and from talking and conversing. So no, that's 100%. Super duper cool. I've got some special visitors here. So the story checks out, apparently, says Kid Sister, can attest to him being a Rush guy, Rush blasting from his room all the time.
All the time.
So it's just nothing better than hearing Rush from another room, because it's hard enough to find the groove and find the time signature of a Rush tune when you're listening to it yourself. When you're hearing it from a distance, it's almost an impossibility.
By the way, my sister is co-owner of the second Rush album I ever bought, so she's still partners in that venture. She's never had possession of it, but she is a partner now. So she knows what I'm talking about.
See, I'm glad to hear that, because I thought I used to do the same thing. I'd go in with either my mum or my brother or sister on an album, because back in those days, albums were a physical thing you had to buy and spend real money on, and they weren't the cheapest thing for when you were younger. So I did that quite a few times, where it's like, well, I can't afford this album for $20, but I got $10 and my brother had $10. We can share it. It'll totally work out. Because and then it's like, where's that album again? Oh yeah, I just need to listen to it a little bit more.
The irony, she actually grew into liking Rushmore, and actually we went to a concert together. But her husband, she says I tricked her. I kind of did trick her, but her husband has taken a shine to Rush more recently, and actually bought one of the limited edition Rush pinball machines, which I actually did a video about.
Wow.
Amazing thing. I'm not a big pinball guy, but wow, that thing's amazing. But it's contagious. Rush is one of those things. Be careful. You may say you don't like them, but careful. That's all I'm going to say. Careful.
Yep. Absolutely. We are going to take a quick break here, because we are brought to you today by, of course, the wonderful BandLab. And I was chatting with Dan in the pre-show, and he's like, Pete, is it going to be a kibosh on this that I don't use BandLab, or I haven't used it before? And I said, no, because it's my job now to convince you that you should go over and check it out. Because, look, I know that there's a lot of social medias in the world, but BandLab is like social media, but just for music nerds. So you can do everything that you can do on your Facebooks and on your other platforms, but it is all music. So if you head on over to the link that's linked up the top there and down in the description, you can check out all the cool things here. So obviously I've got my feed here where I've shared a very important video that we're doing here right now. But the cool thing about BandLab is you can actually put your creations right here. So if you've ever tried to share music on something like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you're linking out to other stuff. It gets really complicated. With BandLab, it's all right here. So I've got all of these projects that I've been working on here to put BandLab to the test, and I can actually come in here. And the cool thing is that it's not only here on your desktop, so I can use a Mac or a PC and jump in directly into the digital audio workstation here on my computer. But there's also an Android app, an iPad app, an iPhone app. So wherever you are, you can actually take your audio with you. And there's a heap of cool features in here. You've got a complete digital audio workstation. You've got a bank of effects that you can play around with. So you've got guitar amps, sims, you've got chorus, you've got reverbs, you've got delays, you've got the works there. And you've got the complete ability to create a song end to end here. And the cool thing is you can then share it. So you can create virtual bands. So if you are a lonely rocker and you want to try and collaborate with other people, you can actually use this. And a lot of folks say to me, but I already use Cakewalk. I already use Logic. I already use GarageBand. The other cool thing is you can just bring those files directly in here, either as stems if you want the individual tracks, or you can bring in the entire project and then share that. So as you were saying before, if you've got people you want to check out your mixes, you want to let them play a guitar solo on one of your songs, it's really easy to do this because it's all integrated, it's all in the cloud, and it's all available there at the click of a mouse button or the tap of a screen. So we do thank BandLab for their support of the show and of the channel here. And yeah, do go check them out. They're super cool, and there's a heap of tutorials here on the channel all about BandLab, and they're related to Cakewalk. And I know that you've worked with Mike and on his show, and Mike does a lot of Cakewalk videos. It's a lot of crossover in the world of online music creation.
Absolutely. By the way, if I can say or interject here, I was watching you as that mixer was loading, and you were talking, and it was like everyone watching here. If you noticed that, as soon as it was like there, boom, smooth as silk, you were like You've done this before, haven't you?
I've done it just a few times, but exactly as you said before, I love what you were saying before about the fact that you start doing it and you learn as you go, and it is better because people have seen me doing this. So those that are the OGs of the channel, Mark and Thomas, and folks that have been around this community for 4 and 5 years since I started. You saw me live stream when I started. It was not smooth. It was not slick. There were more hiccups and hurdles. I didn't know how to light myself. I didn't have the best way of doing things. So, yeah, it is just about trial and error and doing things and learning as you go, for sure. Let's talk about room treatment. Look, we've gone 26 minutes and I haven't actually spoke about that. So acoustic panels, room treatment. You got this reputation as the go-to guy for this stuff for a reason, because you clearly learned or know your stuff and have been able to share that. What would you say to someone that's sitting there right now, like me, in a studio that may not be treated well for their recordings? How do you get started? Because for me, it's always been daunting and overwhelming because you see all these kits online and you see that you have to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars to get all this stuff done. Where do you start, Dan?
Well, you have to. The starting point is to decide to do it first and foremost. And the part of that is the realization that nothing you can do in your existing room is going to make it perfect. So why are we going to use acoustic treatment if it's not going to be perfect? Well, there's a number of reasons why we want to do that. If we're serious about mixing music, we want to improve the conditions that we're working in. Now, you're in a bedroom, okay? I used to work in a kitchen. Actually, this studio used to be a kitchen.
Yeah, right.
I remodeled it. But when I had my last studio in my previous house, we had built this big room, and it was symmetrical. It was good for a studio. And I was starting to mix, and I just noticed, like, as I was getting into it, I had reverberations. I had this cinder block wall on one side. It was drywall on the other side. It was just like it was a bit of a cavernous space, right? So I was doing some research about acoustic treatment. So getting started, I think the first thing to really look at is address your sitting area and what we call the first reflection points. Now, the acoustic treatment that I've done here are standard 2x4 absorbers using, Rockwell Safe and Sound, or the Comfort Board, which is a more rigid product. I've gone back and forth on what's better, but really they're designed just to create a more focused environment. I mean, bass, I've got, we'll call them bass traps, but they're really not true bass traps. Bass is a whole different thing. But I'll tell you, addressing first reflection points is a simple measurement from your sitting point. I've got a whole video about it on how to find that. But really what it does is it addresses sort of either side of you, maybe sort of in your corners, and if you can, above your desk, just to create a more focused environment. Unless you're taking measurements and you're making physical adjustments to the room based on what the physics that deems is necessary, because I always say sound doesn't care. It's going to do what it needs to do based on what you're giving it, right?
Yeah.
There's certain characteristics of that room where there's going to be some, dead spots. There's going to be reflections. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. And I've done an interview with a professional studio designer, and we talked about it, and he agreed that, do what you can, right? Do the best you can. Unless you can afford to hire someone to rebuild your room, which is likely not feasible for most people watching our videos, but you can address first reflection points, make it better, and then get to making music, and then learn your room as it is. And treatment really does help. And I'll tell you, the first day when I finally got my panels up and I sat down in front of my computer, it was just like this feeling that the sound was more focused in front of me, as opposed to being scattered around me. I actually felt it, again, I've done readings in my room and it's far from perfect, but that feel of having that sound in front of you coming, from the front where it's supposed to. Meaning I wasn't getting all these crazy reflections, and it did contribute to improving my process and making it easier to make decisions. That's really what it's all about. You can mix on headphones, but the idea of treatment is just to make your job easier. If you want to just do away with it, you can mix it, but those decisions are going to be harder to make. You're going to be running back and forth to all of your listening reference points just to see where you're at. And it's just going to make your life easier. And they're not hard to make. If you've never done DIY and you want to learn, it's a square frame with some insulation inside and wrapping it in fabric. And it's a good first project to tackle, I think.
I like it. Yeah, the video I was showing there was indeed from when you had the different channel name as well. So
Yes.
I don't have a band, so
Yes.
it's one of the OG ones that I remember I watched a while ago. It does actually show
my humble beginnings there.
Yeah, but look, it's cool because this is exactly what people are talking about, and what people will want to see is, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be going pro. You can just improve upon things. This is a good question from again, Psycho or Sicko. You'll have to tell me how to pronounce your name. Are the treatments necessary, specifically regarding everything recorded in line, guitar, electronic kits, keyboards? Have you found that because folks are recording a lot more virtual stuff these days, like quite often people, unless you're recording vocals, you could record an instrumental where you don't use a microphone at all. Everything is directly line in. Is acoustic treatment still in the mixing process and the mastering process as important for virtual stuff as it is for
well,
recording?
It's irrelevant, right? Because acoustic panels really don't do anything for recording anyways, right? That's the common misconception. I put acoustic panels to help my mixing, not my recording. If you're recording vocals in your studio, I have it's just a little off camera here, but I have a DIY vocal booth here, but you can put yourself in your closet to do your vocals and have jackets and coats around you. But these are specifically designed for mixing and nothing else. So if you're using virtual instruments, listen, I record tube amps, but I record them direct through DI equipment, and I'm using cab sims and things in mix. I'm not miking my Marshall cabs anymore. It's irrelevant because these are for mixing, and that's it.
Yep. Good answer. I'm sorry, I was distracted by Mike having a go at my DIY skills. Yeah, it's rough. I don't do things myself. yeah. I don't. It's funny, like bit of inside baseball, but our dryer bit the dust, and we're trying to buy a new dryer, and they use a different mount, like clothes dryer. They use a different mount these days, and I'm like, oh my god, does this mean I have to remove the old mount and install new mounts? That involves power drills. That's never good. That's always dangerous when Pete gets around any power tools.
Mike did a good little side by side with you and I and the whole DIY thing. That's a video you need to link to everyone in this channel.
Where is that, Mike? Because you did show it one time when we were on the show of Dan's DIY.
He has my permission to drop the link into the stream.
There you go. Me trying to put a green screen up, which is literally just screwing things into other things, and it was quite hilarious. A question here from Thomas Cries. What would be the most inexpensive way to deal with a window that allows a lot of outside noise, traffic, etc., short of replacing the window, anything for a very tight budget? Yeah, so obviously having an enclosed space and not having that outside noise coming in is important. I guess another thing that people don't get is that room treatment doesn't mean noise proofing. Like people think of the old putting your egg cartons up to play the band so that the neighbors don't complain. But what about noise? How do you block out, or how do you prevent some of that outside noise getting in?
Well, this question, my first acoustic panel video has like 600,000 views, and it has a lot of comments, and that question comes up over and over again about blocking sound, which is acoustic treatment is designed to manage reflections within the room from your sitting point. But that noise you hear coming through the window, I mean, I don't know the room. It's possible it's not even coming through the window. If that noise is out there, it could be coming in through, an air vent. It could be,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to block a window, I mean, you could literally measure it. If there's a window frame, I don't know what the window looks like. If it's flush to the wall, I don't know, but most windows are a little inside.
Yeah.
You could easily build a wooden frame, fill it up, make it as thick as you can, fill it up with some soundproof insulation, wrap it up nice. That you don't want it to go through, so it doesn't have to be breathable. Just wrap it up tight and just fit it in the window. It's non-destructive, so you can remove it later. See if that makes a difference. But my guess would be, if you're hearing sound coming from the window, it may not be coming from the window. It could be coming from somewhere else as well. So if you want to isolate yourself and build a nice room inside your room and just stuff it full of goodness, but I don't think that's going to happen. So
Yeah.
do the best you can.
Yeah, very cool. And I think, again, one thing I have learned and that I do, because again, the soundproofing or the sound reduction of outside sounds for recording is very different from mixing environment. And again, as you said, it's a misconception that folks have, but very simple things and very lo-fi things can be done, or low cost or low skill things can be done to try and get you a better sound. And that just means not being around reflective surfaces. It means having a lot of soft stuff. So if you could just hang up a bunch of rugs or hang up a bunch of soft stuff in the space that you're recording in, especially if you're singing or playing or wanting to record a live instrument, that can really help. Because again, the one thing I think that is related that I've found is reflections are the worst thing. So anytime that you have reflective surfaces, parallel surfaces, all of that sort of stuff, that's the sort of thing you need to avoid. So if you can, again, a couple of moving blankets up, draped across a couple of clothes hangers is better than nothing, and it will help.
It's better than nothing, but I think at some point, if you're serious about mixing, you need to sort of understand, how you've set up your room. You need to understand first reflection points. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, there's not just acoustic treatment is not just absorption. There's diffusion. When do you put a diffuser instead of an absorber? I mean, there's a lot of science that goes into making those decisions, and most of us are not going to go down that route, which is why I always say is that focus on first reflection points, because you're going to understand how your room is set up, right? You know where the sound is coming from your speakers, where they're possibly bouncing off the walls, where they might be bouncing off the ceiling, and just addressing that immediate area. Again, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be far from perfect, but it's going to be a lot better. Yeah. And if you're serious about mixing, and it's something that you find that you're going to be doing it a lot, for your own sanity, you want to at least try to make it better. And I don't believe in, random blankets will definitely deaden things. But remember, when treatment is not about deadening the room. Yeah. Absolutely not. It's a combination of factors to make the room sounding natural, right?
Yep.
That's why pros hire professionals. I did an interview with John Brandt. The guy's a master in designing studios, and I learned so much from him. And I actually did a panel design based on some of his advice. And he just kind of smiles sometimes because he knows what goes into building a proper room. It's not easy. It requires a professional to do it, right? Yeah. But it doesn't. But he said, just make music. Don't let it stop you. But start to understand it, because if you're learning the process, that's part of the experience and understanding on how your room works, right? So it was a great learning experience for me. I knew nothing before I started, and I still probably maybe know 2%. But listen, it translated into this new studio where I've addressed the ceiling. So it was worthwhile, worth the time.
Yeah, and I think the key point there is exactly what you said there to finish with is, it's not essential. You need to make music regardless. And I've always said that if you have $1 million studio and a crappy song, you've got a well-recorded crappy song, or a well-mixed and mastered crappy song. If you've got a bedroom studio and an awesome song, it's still going to be an awesome song. You're going to be able to enhance it and improve it and make it slightly better over time. But it's like a bottle of wine. Like if I drink a $20 bottle of wine, that's delicious, and $100 bottle of wine, most people can't tell the difference. But just don't drink the $5 wine from a box. So if you can at least go from the $5 box wine to a $20 bottle, you're going to be a lot happier with the overall results. So learning the little things, watching as many of Dan's videos as you possibly can, of course, is going to up your knowledge, and then you can start implementing and trying things. And experimentation is key. We're in our own spaces, and the one thing you've got is the ability to just try different things, and it might not work, or it might work, and then you try something else. So Very, very cool stuff. If you're just joining us here, if you do have any other questions, feel free to throw those here in the chat. Just put a big Q or the word question in front, and we'll throw down any of those tough questions that you may have as well. Let's nerd out a little bit because we've been talking about a lot about the theory and the background and a lot of that side of it. What about the actual stuff? So, what do you use to? What's your journey? You said at the start you got monitor speakers and an audio interface. You've probably upgraded or changed or done different things over time. What have you found and what do you recommend these days in terms of actual gear for folks recording in the home studio?
Recording what?
Ooh, that's a good question. Recording, let's say, most people in this community are doing maybe guitar or vocal with virtual instruments. So you want to record a rock song. Say you want to record your own. You're a lonely rocker, someone like you that's starting out. If you were starting out again right now, what would you tell yourself to get?
Well, I think if you're just starting out, sort of looking at Keanu and what she's put together in one shot, not everyone is able to do that, and you don't have to go that route. I mean, I love real instruments. I mean, my studio was built around gear that I already had. Like my Marshall setup was here. The other amps came later, but I had the Marshalls, I had the guitars, and I had the desire to write music. Also, I played a bit of bass, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, what I bought at the time, I got an audio interface. I've gone through a few audio interfaces, and I'm at a point now where I'm going to need another one again. But any name brand audio interface today, even if it's a single input or two input interface, the quality of those interfaces today are just, you can't even tell the difference, honestly, because they don't color, right? They don't color sound. So, whether you're going to Focusrite or you've got an Audient or you've got an Icon Pro Audio interface or whatever, you need the basic setup. And in terms of recording, you're obviously going to record in a DAW. We're not going to get into discussion what the best DAW is because, BandLab's got some great tools. I use Logic Pro. I'm currently learning Harrison Mixbus. There's a million and one DAWs out there. The best way to start, if you don't have anything, a lot of interfaces come with bundles. They'll give you a microphone and a DAW all thrown into one. That's a good place to start. I guess within a year, you're probably not going to use any of the stuff in that bundle, but that's okay because this is an experience that continues to grow and evolve. So from there, if you're recording guitar, I started doing it the old-fashioned way with an SM57, miking up my cabs here. And then I discovered Two Notes Audio Engineering, and I got my first captor, torpedo captor, where I can take my amp and go line level into the DAW, crank that thing up to 20, wear headphones, and no one can hear the amp. It's a true tube amp, and then using cab IRs in the mix. DI recording for guitars is an awesome way to record. It's the best hybrid experience. I think you can use a real tube amp, you can use pedals, however you play your amplifier. The only difference is you don't use your cabinet. You go straight into the interface through that DI box. Like I said, I use the Two Notes products. And that lets me go right in line level into the interface, and I'm recording some great sounding guitars. And bass, I go most of the time I go direct. Now, I do have a compressor and a preamp sitting in my racks here, but lately I've been going direct because I got a couple of great plugins that I actually featured on my channel through reviews, and I'm using them. They just bass. I don't like to use amp sims. I like real amps, but for bass, I'm using sim all day. Sim all day.
Oh, there's gonna be bass players out there going, what do we get real at?
That might be changing soon, maybe. I can't really say right now, but I'm looking to go hardware for my bass too. But
very cool.
We'll talk about that.
And of course, you've got a heap of videos over here about all of the different things. So jump into the playlist section here because you've got all sorts of videos and a lot of guitar stuff in there as well. A lot of gear related videos. So it's not all just about room treatment.
No, there's general mixing. I have general mixing, like compression. I did a mid-side EQ video that's gotten really quite popular. A lot of stuff on controllers. That's a big topic on my channel. And the guitar stuff is. It's part of me, and it's kind of a part of everything that I do. I'm not going to lie, I'm having trouble with guitar focused content, but my general studio stuff and mix stuff, which is it's universal. I may be guitar and bass focused, but the tips and things that I share, I try to be a little bit more inclusive so everyone can get something out of it. So
yeah, totally. Question here from Doug. Wondered about the drums you use in your music production.
Doug, for answering that question.
How do you get some drums in there, Dan?
So this is a bit of a little sore spot for me because I do play drums a little bit, but not nearly good enough for the kind of music that I play.
Yeah.
Okay. For example, I'm working on a song right now that one part of the song has a bar of 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 14/8. Okay.
Bloody Rush fans.
Anyways, so it's not all like that. But my point is I like to challenge myself, and I can't do that on the drums. And plus, my drums, I have a drum kit. It's it's loud. Anyway, so what I do, I start in Logic Drummer. I have a video about this as well. I start in Logic Drummer, and I have a very advanced way, which involves a bit of editing. So because I often write on bass, bit of guitar, and I work everything out, and then I use Logic Drummer and map everything out, do all the edits where they need to be, do all the arranging, and I do some fine tuning, and then I drop that into MIDI, and I'll actually manually go in and move cymbals around and some accents that the automation didn't catch and things like that, and just get it to sound really, really as close to real as I can. And then once that's all done, then I drop that into Easy Drummer. Once I've gone to MIDI, and I'll use the Easy Drummer because I love the samples there. And if I'm doing a full mix, I actually separate all of the instruments within the drum, so I'm actually mixing it like a live drummer. So all of my different drums are on different tracks and like that, and then treat it. And I pull out all of the sort of the pre-built-in effects that Easy Drummer offers, like the compression, the room, and all that stuff. And I'll just, when I have time to actually do a full mix, then I'll mix it basically for real.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and I was just showing tips there, a few little clips there from the Logic Pro Drummer, which is something that I need to get into because obviously as a GarageBand user, I use a Drummer on GarageBand iOS, which is, if you do enough editing, can sound pretty darn good, as can GarageBand Drummer, and as can Logic Drummer. Just goes that next step. And then again, the next step is if you want to do any sort of sample replacement or sending the MIDI out to something like an Easy Drummer or a Superior Drummer or a different plugin, you've got a heap of options that you can do there. So again, it's like start at scratch. There's nothing wrong with just throwing the drummer on and doing some tweaking. You can still get some pretty good sounds.
I'd rather use a live drummer. I had the pleasure of working with a great drummer who I met through social media, and he volunteered his services on a tune and then actually sent me tracks for a second one, which I haven't mixed yet. And it was such a pleasure working with real drums because my favorite instrument is probably drums. It's the one instrument that I don't play as well. I mean, guitar and bass is my thing, but I love great drummers. Yeah. There's no substitute for it. And it's the one sore spot in my music. I just I can't bring a live drummer in everything that I do. So I live with the virtual drummer. But that's why I put a lot of work into it, because I want to be proud of it on some level.
Yeah.
But really I'm not, because I'd much rather have a real drummer.
Yeah. Totally. A question from Josiah: when did you meet Pete? When did we meet? It was we've been on
5 minutes before the show.
Yeah.
What the hell are you? I thought I was on Mike's show. What's going on?
What is this? Studio Live? What are you talking about? Yeah. No,
I had been aware of you for quite some time, actually. And then when I met Mike, and then but it was definitely through one of his shows that we formally got to meet. So
yeah. So
and listen, Mike has been a conduit to a few of us. So I got to give a big
Mike's a great matchmaker. He likes to do his thing. He brings together different creators. He was the guy that slid into my DMs a few years back when he was starting his channel, and I think he had a couple of thousand subscribers at that point. And he's just like, wouldn't mind doing some collaborations with you. And I'm like, yeah, sure thing. It sounds good. We got chatting, and the rest is history, as they say. So yes, do go check out Mike's Fix My Mix show, because Dan and myself and Ricky T and a bunch of the cool folks that you know around this community are often guests on there. And I think Mike's doing a special show today where he's actually going and doing some mixing, some special edition where he's going to go behind the scenes of a project. So that should be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to hearing that one. And that's coming up in just 13 minutes. So we better get on. Let's talk about your Mac Studio journey, because you've just upgraded your computer. We were chatting in the pre-show here. You've gone for the Mac Studio, and you've told me this stuff, but why don't you tell folks about the history of the gear, the platforms that you've been using for Logic and for your creations, and then why you finally have upgraded, and what your experience has been like with the new Mac Studio.
So I mean, I'm a Mac user. I'm not a fanboy necessarily, but I like working on Mac. It's just something I've been doing for a long time. I mean, coming from a professional video editing background before I got into working as a producer and director, stuff like that. The studios I was working in had Macs, so it was just a natural. When I got my first system at home, I got the Mac G5, which predated the Mac Pros. but that was their sort of the silver tower that became the Mac Pro. So I'm a Mac guy, and all the things that I've acquired are Mac. So I mean, I've had PCs for personal use. So anyways, I've been on Mac, and then was upgrading maybe every 5 years. And then the last computer before the Mac Studio was the Mac Pro Trash Can, which was when did those come out? In 2009? Oh, hold on.
Yeah, it was around there, wasn't it? Yeah.
Anyways, so I bought mine a few years later, and then I have to say, of all the Macs that I've ever owned, I've liked that one the least, except for a Lemon MacBook Pro that I had. It was a Lemon, but it dated itself far quicker than any other desktop Mac that I've ever had. And because you couldn't change anything in there. And anyway, so it was around 2019-ish. I was waiting for Mac to announce a new Mac Pro or something, and they were like 6 years. It was 6 years between the Mac Pro Trash Can and what they eventually came out with in 2019. And then they decided that the new Mac Pros were only going to be for the Illuminati and not for the rest of us, right? So so I was
starting
like,
at $10,000.
Yeah, which look, I this is my profession, so I mean, people in my circles is like, okay, it's probably a few grand more than you wanted to spend, but it's something you're going to make money on.
Yeah.
But I kind of got stuck in my principles at that point. I said, well, it's like kind of overkill, and I don't know if it's what I want to do. And I've been afforded this luxury of working from home because I've operated lean, and I mostly profit than cost, and that's just how I operate. So I decided not to jump into that. So by the time now we're getting past 2020, 2021, and my computer is just, I'm having all kinds of problems. And so when they were ready to announce, it was in December of last year, the rumor was a Mac Mini Pro. And I was like, okay, if that's what it is, it'll be under $2,000. I don't care. I'm just going to buy it. And then if something better comes along later, I will. And then they didn't announce anything. So then finally they announced this Mac Studio, which I heard a rumor the day before the last event, which was in March, right? And I realized this is that middle tier desktop solution that Apple didn't have in their lineup. It was like Mac Mini and then up to like this expensive Mac Pro. So this was sort of the middle tier desktop solution. And I decided that I had to get it because my machine was just not cutting it anymore. So what can I say? It's great today. But I have a feeling in a few years I'm going to be like, damn, this is the Mac the trash can all over again, because it's a sealed unit. There's nothing in it. There's people who figured out that you might be able to swap out the drives, because that was something people tested. It didn't work, but they've figured that part out. But the new M1, the new Apple Silicon, I don't even say M1 anymore, the Apple Silicon, because they've now announced M2.
M2
I mean, the GPU, CPU, and all the RAM, it's all integrated on the same chip, right? So you got to configure it the way you want. So, but you know what? It's been great compared to what I had before.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie. It's got me like, because I recently moved from Avid to DaVinci Resolve. I was using Avid Media Composer for video editing. Yeah. And there's certain things that's like, I'm not even working in 4K here. I'm working in 1080p. And why is that not playing in real time? It's only one effect. So I see that sometimes, and I'm kind of confused. I go, like, that shouldn't be a problem. I should be playing like at least 8 streams with effects like in real time. And I don't know if that's DaVinci Resolve not completely optimized, or they say it's M1 optimized, but I feel like it's not, because I don't feel like I'm getting unlimited like real-time playback. So there's some hiccups, but it's been 1,000% better than what I had before.
Yeah, and look, it is that thing, and I said to you before the show, I'm like, you must be really glad you didn't buy the Mac Pro in 2019. But again, if you had, you'd be, oh well, I'm there, and in a couple of years' time, I'll upgrade again. So I think when it comes to the gear side of it, you can overthink it again, as we talked about before. But if you put your thinking cap on, buying or using whatever you have right now, for starters, so you can create on, again, obviously on my channel I talk about the fact that your iPhone is a more powerful computer than the PC I had 10 years ago. So creating on iPhone or iPad versus my PC, my old i5 from 2010, is going to crush it. And the same with iPads and again, the new Mac M1s, even the absolute base model. I'm on a Mac Mini, so the Mac Studio is like the fat Mac, so it's like the double height of the Mac Mini. I'm on the Mac Mini, and it's absolute base level, 8 gigabytes RAM, 256 gig hard drive, and it does all my live streaming stuff. Like it can handle all this sort of thing. Now, if I start throwing multiple streams of 4K and 8K at it, maybe not, but it does everything that I need to do for video and for audio production. So you have different needs, a lot of folks, I think, overbuy the gear for A, their skill level, and B, what they're actually going to do with it, because they just want to have the shiny newness and the shiny hotness. Sometimes you got to work your way up. And hearing your story there, yeah, like if it's your job, you do need to buy the tools for your job. If it's your hobby, buy what you can afford, buy what's going to work for you right now. And
I went for the M1 Ultra, and I bumped it. I think the M1 Ultra starts at 64 gigs of RAM, which is, for audio production, that's a lot of, even for video production. I don't do 3D animation and stuff like that. And I put 2 terabyte SSD in there. I think it comes with 1 terabyte, because that was one of the big problems I had with the trash can. It had a 256 gigabyte internal drive, and that thing was full. There was nothing more I could do with it, and upgrading it was not easy. So, but I went a little bit higher just because I wanted to build some runway. It should be overkill for anything that I'm going to do on it for a good few years, and I'm hoping it'll be good for 5 years. And it wasn't cheap.
Yeah,
the M1 Ultra is not cheap. Like in Canadian dollars, is about $6,000. That's not a cheap computer compared to the $10,000-$12,000 I would have spent on a Mac Pro. It seems cheap, but it's not cheap. And the fact that it's a sealed unit, but how much longer was I going to wait? I mean, I had so many. Like, here's the difference. When I would finish one of my YouTube episodes, give or take how long the show was, it would take an average of 20 minutes to export that movie file.
Yeah.
On the Mac Studio, actually it's hiding behind that wall there. And the Mac Studio, it takes about a minute and a half. Yeah. And as you know, sometimes we export it 2 or 3 times before we, it's that just gives you an indication of how much time it is actually saving me. In my production, and that's time I get back to use to actually do something, because when that machine's rendering, you just leave it alone, do nothing. So in this case, a minute and a half, it's done. If I screw up, no big deal, just do it again, right?
Which and again, for folks like us that are actually rendering out video and doing things, it's probably something we need. For the average person rocking GarageBand or Logic Pro that's recording, like we said before, that is a true lonely rocker that just cares about the music more than other things, then you won't need that as much overkill. You won't need a $6,000 machine. And I know that many folks, look, I was a Windows user for a long time. I used iOS for ages. I had a channel devoted to iOS music creation, but still used Windows up until about 2 years ago. But the one smart thing that Apple have done, I mean, yes, you can criticize them for not being able to swap out and creating little pieces of consumer electronics now as opposed to computers, but the one thing they've done is reduce their prices significantly, because I got in at under $1,000 with a Mac that is faster, well and truly faster than my last PC, and that just wasn't the case before. The specs weren't there for the price. You were paying the Apple premium tax, and now I think you're actually getting the value. You're getting the bang for your buck. You're spending the money, but you can get in at that lower price point, and it's going to do everything you want it to do. And just, I don't know. I know I'm sounding like a Mac fanboy now myself, but the iOS, Mac OS is more like iOS than it's ever been before, and it's only getting more that way. So if you are in the Apple ecosystem and you use iPhones and iPads, your life is so much simpler if you're using a Mac, because you can message to and fro, you can just airdrop files, you can do all sorts of things. And again, around that workflow stuff, if I don't have to transfer using a USB drive, if I can just say, oh, hey, here's my phone, I just took some footage out while I was there, and send it to my Mac, and it just goes bing, 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 and it takes like 3 minutes, as opposed to me going, all right, now I got to go and I got to download it and I got to put it somewhere in the cloud, and then I got to download it from there to the other machine. The workflow is definitely there. We've got a question here from Mark. Do you dare reveal your location? We've got many Canadians here, Dan. So Mark says, where are you in Canada, Dan? I'm from Montreal.
I'll say I was born in Montreal, West Island here. I don't know where Mark is from. But I moved to Toronto. I'll say Toronto, Greater Toronto area. It's a big city. I actually live just north of Toronto. So, but I'm basically from Toronto.
Very cool. There you go. You asked and you found out. We only have like 2 minutes left here, mate, and these shows always fly by. And I mentioned to you at the start, it's a good opportunity because I know we just jump around and we answer questions and it's never really focused, but it's an opportunity to just shoot the breeze and just chat about things that I know that many of the folks, and it's called the Creator Town Hall because you're all creators, we're creators, your experiences will all differ from what we have, but hopefully you got some tips, some ideas, some inspiration here today. Everyone's going to go off and start reflecting. I know everyone's getting the mirrors out now. They're working out where their reflections are, and they're going to be positioning themselves.
If you do, send me your pictures. I will look at them.
There you go. Well, yeah. The other thing is that do check out on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow Dan on a bunch of different places, and you've got a cool little community you've started on Facebook as well that is
Little
starting
is a
to grow.
keyword, whatever we started it.
Everyone starts somewhere, mate. Before we finish off here, what I like to ask at the end of these shows is, what is your if someone's watched this show and they're getting started on their journey now, they are a new creator, they're a noob, they're a rookie, whatever you want to call it. What's your advice for getting started? So if you were sitting there right now with nothing and with limited experience, what do you tell someone? How do they get started?
Well, the way I look at creation is it has to start with something, right? I mean, it's a rabbit hole, depending on whether you want to be a music creator, you want to be a YouTuber, you want to be all these
Yep.
things. There's a lot of steps to that, but I think a good starting point is to build around a discipline you already have, right? Like all of this wouldn't have happened if I didn't play guitar, right? Like guitar was the
Got it.
thing that carried me through all these years. And all of a sudden I started to look outside my borders and I started adding other things. I mean, it's daunting. This is daunting. I didn't buy all this stuff in one day. It's I've accumulated it over the years. So I think my advice would be is if you're going to start something, you have to have a reason to want to start it. And it
Mm.
should be based around one thing that you do well, and then it can grow from there. If you look at it like, yeah, I want to have a home studio, I want to do multiple instruments, I want to do all this stuff. It's like I never thought that way, and like so start with that one thing that you're passionate about, that you do really well, and it could be an acoustic guitar and an iPhone, and start from there. And then if you find yourself enjoying it, start to add bits and pieces. Learn as you go. Be methodical, and don't spend frivolously, because as we both know, we can spend on plugins and all kinds of crazy stuff. Be
Yep.
very methodical and focus on what you need, and start with that single idea, that single thing you do well, and let everything branch off from there. And I think that's the best way to look at it.
I really dig that, and it's different from what we've heard from other folks, because and that's why I love doing this show, because every time we get to the end of a show, someone will give a different bit of advice about how to get started, and there's no right or wrong way, but I do love that of actually leveraging something that you already do well, because that will get you the confidence. And I know I started with exactly that. I just set up my iPhone and started playing acoustic guitar and singing, and thought to myself, there's got to be a way that I can record these separately, and then add plugins, and then found GarageBand, and then the rest is history from there. So yeah, start with what you do well, and then enhance. Because I think a lot of times we go, oh, I know nothing about mixing, I better start with that. It's like, no, you're probably going to pull your hair out and start wearing caps like man down within a couple of days. That is going to do it for this one. A huge thank you to everyone who's been here live. Thank you to my guest, Dan, the Lonely Rocker. And again, a huge thanks to BandLab, who are the sponsors of this show and who help keep the lights on around here at Studio Live today. Any final thoughts for our community here today, Dan?
Well, I'm just some familiar faces that join the stream. I just want to thank everyone. I mean, I'm working hard trying to do the best content I can, and I do appreciate anyone who spends any time with anything I've done. I certainly don't take anything for granted. So just figure I'd take this chance just to say thank you to anyone who's spent a minute or two around the stuff that I do. Never understood why, but I appreciate it.
I know. Wake up every morning, you're like, why do people want to watch our stuff again? Okay, well, just accept it. Just go with it. Thank you very much again to everyone for being here. You can jump on over now, because look who's just started. Yeah, that bloke. You can go over and check out Fix My Mix with Mike from Creative Source. He looks like he's already having fun over there, despite the fact that he doesn't have me and Dan to rib on today. So thanks everyone for being here. As we say at the end of every show this week, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, keep creating, and we'll see you next time on the Creator Town Hall.